Welcome to Swadharma IAS Academy.
It is really great to be here today.
Yeah, today is February 19th, 2026. And for those of you listening, I really think you are witnessing a moment that historians of technology, and honestly, probably historians of the Indian economy, are going to circle in red.
Oh, absolutely. It is a massive pivot point.
Right, because for the last, 4 or 5 years, the global narrative around artificial intelligence has basically been a two-horse race.
Yeah, USA and China.
Exactly. It was Silicon Valley versus Shenzhen. It was OpenAI and Google on one side, and then DeepSeek and Baidu on the other. And the rest of us, the rest of the world was just the audience.
We were just consumers.
Yeah.
Or at best, we were service providers.
Right, the classic IT backend.
Exactly. The classic designation for India has always been that we provide the CEOs, to run the companies. We provide the back-end coding talent, and we do the data labeling. But the actual intellectual property, the brain of the AI that lived on servers in Oregon or Shanghai, we were renting intelligence, we weren't owning it.
We were just paying the API fees. But this morning, the headlines are painting a completely different picture. We are looking at a breaking news event today that fundamentally shatters that old narrative.
It really does.
We are talking about Sarvam AI. And the headline isn't just that an Indian company has launched some sort of Me Too product. The breaking news in 2026 is that Sarvam is actively outperforming Google's Gemini and OpenAI's ChatGPT.
And outperforming them in tasks that are specifically crucial to the Indian context.
Right. Our documents, our languages are very messy and complex reality.
And for you listening right now, especially if you're preparing for the Civil Services UPSC or APPSC or TGPSC, you really need to pay attention to this.
Yeah, this isn't just tech news.
No, it is a geopolitical and economic shift. We're moving from being a user economy to a creator economy. This cuts right across GS Paper 3 under Science and Technology, but as we will see, it is equally relevant for GS Paper 2 regarding governance and social justice.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to really tear this topic apart for you. We are going to look under the hood of the technology to see what Sarvam is actually doing differently. We need to unpack this concept of sovereign AI that everyone is throwing around.
Right. Is it a buzzword or is there substance?
Exactly. And crucially, we need to look at the real-world impact. How does this change the bureaucracy? How does it actually change the life of a farmer in Vidarbha or a district collector in Shikakulam?
Because if the tech doesn't solve that last mile problem, it's really just a toy for the elite.
So let's start with the framework. The term sovereign AI is everywhere in the news cycle right now. If I'm a student writing a mains answer, I can't just say, well, it's Indian AI.
No, that won't cut it.
We need a precise definition. What actually separates a sovereign AI model from just a fancy wrapper around GPT-4?
It is a critical distinction to make. Sovereign AI represents a strategic national asset. It's not just a Made in India branding exercise. It has to meet three very specific, non-negotiable criteria.
Okay, let's break those down.
First is domestic data. The AI must be trained specifically on data generated within the country. So that means our languages, our cultural nuances, our historical context, and crucially, our specific type of noisy data.
Right, it's not just scraping the pristine Western internet.
Precisely. It has to have the DNA of India in its data set. Second is domestic infrastructure. And this is where we get into national security.
The hardware side.
Yes. The model needs to be hosted on servers and compute infrastructure, the GPUs and data centers that are physically located within India's borders. It cannot be running on a cloud server in Frankfurt or Virginia.
Because then someone else controls the off switch.
Exactly. And the third pillar is domestic governance. The AI must be governed by Indian laws, specifically things like the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, the DPDP Act.
Because if an American model violates Indian privacy standards, it gets really murky, right?
Very complicated. Our legal recourse is limited. But if a sovereign model does it, they are fully liable under Indian law.
I want to push back a bit on the why here. Because, a cynic might say, look, Google and Microsoft spend billions of dollars on R&D. Their models are incredibly smart. Why reinvent the wheel?
That's a fair question.
Why not just use their APIs? Why is this sovereignty so important that we need to spend thousands of crores building it from scratch?
To answer that, you really have to look at history. Think about the concept of data colonization. It parallels the colonial era of the 18th and 19th centuries perfectly.
Ah, like the East India Company model.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
What did the colonial powers do? They extracted raw materials, cotton indigo spices from the colonies, at dirt cheap rates.
Right, and ship them off.
They ship them to factories in Manchester or Lancashire. They processed them into finished goods like textiles, and then they sold those finished goods back to the colonies at a massive markup. They capture the entire value chain of the processing.
And today the raw material isn't cotton, it's data.
Data is the cotton of the AI age. If we rely solely on OpenAI or Google, we are effectively shipping our raw data, our medical records, our financial transactions, our court cases to servers in the U.S.
They use that data to train their models.
That's the processing. They make their models smarter using our data, and then they sell that intelligence back to us via an API fee.
So we become a digital colony.
Exactly. We provide the raw data. They capture all the economic value.
There is also a major security angle here too, right? I mean, we saw what happened with the SWIFT banking sanctions during the Russia-Ukraine war. Vital systems were just turned off overnight.
And that is the absolute nightmare scenario for any strategic planner in New Delhi. Imagine if our entire judicial system or our Unified Payments Interface, UPI, relied on an API provided by a company in a country we suddenly have a diplomatic spat with.
They could just cut our access.
They could restrict access. They could throttle the speed. They could raise the price 1,000% overnight. That is what we call API dependency. It renders your critical national infrastructure completely vulnerable to foreign policy decisions made in Washington or Beijing.
So building a sovereign AI is essentially an insurance policy for national stability.
It is strategic autonomy, plain and simple. By 2026, the U.S. and China have locked down their AI sovereignty. France has been doing it with Mistral, the UAE, with Falcon. Sarvam AI is India's bid to ensure we aren't just a client state. We need to own the mathematical brain of the model.
Let's talk about the people actually building this brain, because usually the story we hear involves brilliant Indian talent migrating to Silicon Valley to build these things for American companies.
Right. We all know the names Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai.
But Sarvam is a very different story.
It is a reverse migration of sorts, or really a retention of high-value talent. The main architects here are Dr. Vivek Raghavan and Dr. Pratyush Kumar. And you need to understand these aren't fresh college graduates hacking together a quick demo in a garage.
They are veterans.
Absolute veterans. They come from AI for Bharat, which is a research lab at IIT Madras that has done all the pioneering foundational work in Indian language processing.
And they were deeply involved with Aadhaar, correct?
Yes, and that is a crucial detail for our listeners to note. Vivek Raghavan was instrumental in the technical architecture of Aadhaar.
Why does that matter specifically for AI?
Because it means they understand population scale. Building an app for 1 million tech-savvy users in Bangalore is one thing. Building digital public infrastructure, DPI, for 1.4 billion people, including the remote, the unconnected, and the illiterate, is a completely different engineering challenge.
You can't just move fast and break things when it's the national identity system.
Exactly. They have the pedigree of building systems that do not break under the immense weight of India's diversity.
The name Sarvam itself, which is Sanskrit for all or everything, really suggests that massive scale. It implies universality.
The whole philosophy is AI for everyone. It specifically targets the digital divide. See, we often fool ourselves. You and I, we speak English fluently. We use ChatGPT, and it works great. We think, well, what's the problem? The AI is already perfect.
But we are the top 10%.
We are the India 1.
Yeah.
The India that lives on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Right.
The other 90%, India 2 and India 3. They speak Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Marathi, Bengali.
Mm-hmm.
They think in these languages. When they use the internet, they're often treated as second-class citizens.
Because the global models are trained primarily on the English internet.
Exactly. When a global model tries to process Indian languages, it often just treats them as a translation task. It takes the English concept, translates it literally, and in the process, it loses the nuance, the cultural context, and the accuracy. Sarvam is building a full-stack AI specifically optimized for that 90%.
Let's get into that full-stack technology then, because the claims being made in these 2026 breaking news reports are bold. They're claiming to outright beat Google and OpenAI. Let's look at Sarvam Vision first. This deals with optical character recognition, or OCR. Now, OCR has been around for decades. You scan a document, and the computer reads the text. Why is this suddenly a breakthrough?
Because Indian paper is a nightmare.
That is very true.
I mean that quite literally. Think about the average government office in a Tier 3 district.
Oh, I can picture it perfectly. Stacks and stacks of files tied with actual red tape. Yellowing, crumbling paper. Handwritten notes scribbled in the margins. Coffee stains, faded ink.
Exactly. We call these legacy documents. A massive portion of India's legal land and historical data is locked away in these deteriorating physical papers. Now, Western models like GPT-4 or Gemini Vision, they're trained on pristine digital-born images or high-quality scans of English text.
So when you feed them a blurry photo of a 1970s land deed written in cursive Marathi with a government stamp stamped right over the text,
They completely fail. They hallucinate. They might read a name wrong. Or, more dangerously, they might read a number wrong.
and in a land deed, reading a number wrong is a total catastrophe.
It is a lawsuit waiting to happen. This is exactly where Sarvam Vision is breaking new ground. In benchmarks that are specifically designed for Indian languages and these complex degraded document types, Sarvam Vision has achieved an accuracy of 84.3%.
Now, 84.3%. To a layperson, that might not sound like 100%, but in this specific context, that's considered very high.
In the context of in the wild OCR for low-resource scripts and messy documents, it is absolutely revolutionary. For comparison, the massive global models are often trailing significantly behind in these specific tests.
Wow.
And then there is document understanding, which is the next layer up. That's where they are hitting 93.28% accuracy.
What is the difference between OCR and document understanding?
OCR is just seeing a bunch of letters. Document understanding is the AI knowing that this box is a table, this column is the date, and this specific scribble is a signature. It understands the context of the page.
Oh, so it's the difference between just reading letters and understanding that you are looking at an invoice worth 50,000 rupees.
Correct. And this capability allows for the actual digitization of the Indian state. We're talking about digitizing millions of court records that are currently just rotting away in damp storage rooms.
If you can digitize them, you can search them.
If you can search them, you can analyze legal precedents instantly. You can drastically speed up the judiciary. It's not just about reading text, it's about finally unlocking the dark data of the nation.
Let's pivot to the other modality, which is voice. Because you mentioned the 90% who might not be comfortable typing. We really are a voice-first nation.
We are entirely a voice-first nation. Just look at WhatsApp usage across the country. People heavily prefer sending a voice note over typing on a tiny glass keyboard.
Great. Literacy is still a barrier for some, but even beyond that digital literacy, just the ability to navigate complex drop-down menus is a huge friction point. Voice completely bypasses that.
So Sarvam developed Bulbul V-3.
I have to say, naming it Bulbul the Nightingale is a really nice cultural touch compared to something sterile like GPT-4o.
It connects with the user immediately.
Yeah.
Bulbul V-3 is a text-to-speech and speech-to-text model that covers 22 scheduled languages natively. But the real killer feature isn't just the sheer number of languages, it's the accent and the code mixing.
By code mixing, you mean Hinglish.
English, Tanglish, Punglish.
Yeah.
It is the way Indians actually speak in real life. We switch languages mid-sentence constantly. If I say buy, market sentiment, kya hai, aj, a standard American AI model hears that and gets entirely confused.
Right. It might try to pronounce buy with a weird American twang or just fail to switch context between the Hindi and the English words.
Exactly. Bulbul V3 handles this code mixing perfectly natively.
And what about the emotional tone? I've heard some of the Western AI voices like 11 Labs, and they sound incredibly realistic, but they sound like a BBC newsreader or a California tech podcaster.
They completely lack the Indianness. And this is crucial for trust. If a government voice bot calls a farmer in rural Bihar to remind them about a crop insurance deadline, and it sounds like a robotic American, the farmer is going to hang up. It feels like a scam.
But if it sounds like a local with the right intonation, the right natural pauses, the right respect markers,
Then there is immediate trust. Adoption relies entirely on trust. Bulbul captures that specific cultural cadence perfectly.
there is also a major hardware aspect to Bulbul, right? The reports say it runs on edge devices. Can you explain the significance of that for a non-technical listener?
This is a massive leap for accessibility. Usually these big AI models live in the cloud, which means huge data centers. To use them, you speak into your phone, your voice recording is sent up to the cloud, it gets processed, and the audio answer comes back down.
Which requires a really strong 4G or 5G connection and a data plan.
And in rural areas, connectivity is incredibly spotty. Edge computing means the AI model has been compressed and made efficient enough to run directly on the phone itself. It doesn't need to talk to the cloud for every single word.
That reduces latency, the delay.
It reduces latency and it drastically reduces cost. It means a budget smartphone or even a sophisticated feature phone can run these voice agents locally.
That truly democratizes the tech. You don't need a 50,000 rupee flagship phone to get the benefits of the AI revolution.
Correct. It brings the AI directly to where the user is, rather than forcing the user to upgrade their life to reach the AI.
Now, I want to get deeply into the 2026 breaking news specifics regarding the models themselves. The intro mentioned the Sarvam 105B model. Now, 105B stands for 105 billion parameters. That is a massive number. But why is this being called a foundation model? What does that mean?
Think of a foundation model like the actual engine of a car. Up until now, most Indian AI startups were basically building the chassis, the paint, the seats, the steering wheel, but they were buying the engine from OpenAI.
They were just fine-tuning someone else's core model.
Yes. Sarvam 105B is the engine itself. It is built from the ground up and trained from scratch on 16 trillion tokens.
I really want to pause on that word tokens. This is a concept that confuses a lot of people, but it seems to be a key part of Sarvam's secret sauce here. Why does tokenization matter so much for Indian languages?
This is their true economic moat. A token is essentially the basic unit of text that an AI reads and processes. In English, one word is usually just one token. The word apple is one token. But the way Western models like GPT-4 were built, they fully optimize their dictionaries for English.
So what happens when they see an Indian language?
When they see a Hindi word, say, Swadharma, they don't recognize it as one word. They might break it up into 5 or 6 nonsense fragments, SWADHR, just to process it.
So one Hindi word becomes 6 tokens.
Exactly. And here's the kicker for the economics. You pay for cloud AI by the token. Yes. If a Hindi sentence takes 4 times as many tokens to represent as the exact same English sentence, then using the AI in Hindi is literally 4 times more expensive than using it in English.
It is an inequality tax built right into the architecture of the technology.
It is a massive inequality tax. It makes business models completely unviable for local languages. If I am a startup trying to build a Hindi legal bot using GPT-4, I am paying a massive premium just for the language. Sarvam built their tokenizer entirely from scratch to be highly efficient for Indian scripts.
So for Sarvam, one Hindi word equals 1 or 2 tokens.
Yes. This makes the inference, the cost to actually run the model drastically lower. It finally makes the economics work for local languages.
So having the Sarvam 105B foundation model allows other Indian developers to build applications, apps, bots, government services on top of an Indian engine that is cheaper and faster for our own languages.
Yes, it creates an entire domestic ecosystem. You're paying rupees for local compute, not dollars, for foreign API credits.
Man, there's hardware news dropping today too, right? Sarvam case and the Vikram bot.
Yes. The Sarvam case is their entry into the wearables market, specifically AI smart glasses. The reports this morning suggest even the Prime Minister has been testing a prototype.
Smart glasses for India.
It's about augmented reality tailored for the Indian context. Imagine looking at a complex signboard in Malayalam and hearing the exact translation whispered in your ear in Hindis instantly.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm even more excited about Vikram.
Who or what is Vikram?
Vikram is the AI bot, specifically designed for the Chipku phone, the basic keypad feature phone. We still have hundreds of millions of 2G users in this country.
People who don't have touchscreens.
Exactly. Vikram brings things like UPI payments and complex information search directly to the keypad phone. You just speak to it. You don't need to navigate an app store. You don't need a touchscreen.
It completely bridges the gap between the 1990s technology that many poor people still rely on and the 2026 AI revolution.
That is the Antyodaya of technology, reaching the absolute last person in the line.
Let's shift gears to the application side of things. We are Swadharma IAS Academy, so we really need to map this back to the syllabus for you listening. GS Paper 2, Governance, Transparency, and Accountability. How does a sovereign AI like Sarvam actually change the slow machinery of the government? We talked about OCR, but give me a concrete scenario.
Let's look at the judiciary. The pendency of cases is a standard UPSC exam topic, right? We have over 5 core pending cases in the system. A huge bottleneck is the sheer volume of paper.
Right. Evidence, previous judgments, FIRs, often filed in multiple regional languages.
A judge has to read through thousands of pages before even hearing a single argument. Now imagine a Sarvam-powered judicial assistant. It ingests the scanned files of a 20-year-old land dispute.
Using that Sarvam Vision OCR we talked about.
Exactly. It digitizes the Marathi handwritten notes. It identifies the key dates and the crucial pieces of evidence. It summarizes the arguments from both sides. And it translates all of this seamlessly into English or whatever the judge's preferred language is.
Suddenly, the judge isn't spending 10 hours just reading the raw files.
They're spending 1 hour reviewing a highly accurate summary and checking the AI citations. You could theoretically increase the disposal rate of cases by 500%.
But what about the risk factor? What if the AI hallucinates a date or misunderstands a precedent?
That is the core governance challenge you have to write about in your exams. You cannot replace the judge. This is what we call human-in-the-loop AI. The AI provides the summary with deep citations linking directly back to the original scanned image. The human verifies it, but the massive heavy lifting is done by the machine.
What about healthcare? That's another massive governance challenge in India.
Rural healthcare is plagued by a severe shortage of specialized doctors. An ASA worker or a generic physician in a remote village often struggles with diagnosing complex conditions.
So how does Sarvam step in?
Sarvam can power a highly localized diagnostic assistant. The doctor or the ASA worker describes the patient's symptoms via voice in their local dialect. The AI, which is trained on vast amounts of Indian medical data, suggests potential diagnoses or flags, critical red flags for immediate transfer to a city hospital.
And it can also explain the prescription directly to the patient.
That's the vital part. Patients often leave a rural clinic not fully understanding the dosage because the doctor was in a rush and spoke in medical jargon. The AI can patiently explain, take this pill twice a day after food in the patient's specific village dialect.
That directly improves medication adherence and overall health outcomes.
Significantly.
Education seems like another really obvious application.
It breaks the English premium. Right now, if you want to learn high-level physics or advanced coding, the best content on the internet is almost exclusively in English.
So if you are a brilliant student in a Tamil medium school, you just hit an invisible ceiling.
Sarvam-powered AI tutors can completely shatter that ceiling. They can explain complex quantum mechanics in fluent Tamil. They can teach Python coding in Hindi. It unlocks the raw intellectual potential of our demographic dividend.
Now, all of this sounds incredibly expensive to build. Training 105 billion parameter models from scratch takes massive computing power. Who is actually paying for all this? The news reports mention a $41 million Series A funding round.
Yes, that was a record-breaking round for early-stage AI in India. They have heavy backing from Vinod Khosla, who is a total legend in Silicon Valley and Lightspeed Ventures. But interestingly, they also formed a major partnership with Microsoft Azure.
Which seems a bit contradictory on the surface. Isn't Microsoft the main competitor with their OpenAI stake?
It's a classic case of co-opetition. Microsoft ultimately wants to sell cloud computing infrastructure. They are perfectly happy to host Sarvam's models on their Azure India servers. It validates Sarvam's tech globally. But the much more important funding story for your UPSC prep is the Indie AI mission.
The government's direct role in this.
Yes. The government of India realized that compute, specifically GPUs, is now a critical strategic national resource. Private Indian startups simply can't afford to buy 10,000 NVIDIA H100 GPUs. They cost $30,000 each.
So the government has stepped in.
With a massive mission outlay of over 10,000 crores to subsidize this exact infrastructure, they are providing 4,000 GPUs specifically to domestic startups like Sarvam.
So this is a modern public-private partnership model?
It is the only way it works at this scale. The state provides the capital-intensive infrastructure, basically the digital highways, and the private startups build the models, the cars that drive on them. It's very similar to how ISRO is now working with private space companies.
Let's zoom out to the broader geopolitical picture as we wrap up. We often talk about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, or IR 4.0. Where does this specific Sarvam breakthrough put India on the global map?
Let's quickly trace the historical arc. IR 1.0 was steam and machines. Great Britain absolutely dominated that. IR 2.0 was electricity and mass production. The USA and Europe took the lead. IR 3.0 was the internet and software, undeniably the American century.
And India was just the back office for IR 3.0.
We were the IT support desk. Now, IR 4.0 is artificial intelligence. The foundational premise is simple. Whoever controls the intelligence controls the future economy.
So if India had just remained a consumer of AI,
we would be paying an intelligence tax to the US and China for the next 50 years. Every single time we used a computer or a phone, we would be sending micropayments abroad.
But by building Sarvam and establishing sovereign AI, we are actively trying to break that dependency.
We are finally leveraging our two unique national strengths. One, we have the world's largest talent pool of engineers. Two, we have the world's largest and most diverse data pool. We generate more raw digital data than any other country on Earth.
Sarvam is the moment where we combine the talent and the data to build a product for the world.
We are officially moving from a service provider to a product nation.
It's a profound shift from made in India to thought in India.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it. Just notice the direct competition today. Sarvam is being actively compared to DeepSeek from China and OpenAI from the US. We are finally in the arena. We aren't just sitting in the stands taking notes anymore.
So to wrap this deep dive up for you listening, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We defined sovereign AI, remember the three pillars: domestic data, domestic, infra-domestic governance.
We look deeply at the why, avoiding data colonization and preventing API dependency.
We dissected the actual tech. Sarvam Vision solving the bad paper problem of Indian bureaucracy with 84% accuracy. Bulbul V-3 solving the voice barrier with native English code mixing.
We discussed the critical economics of tokenization, why Hindi needs its own specific tokens to be affordable and avoid that inequality tax.
And we looked at the real-world applications for GS Paper 2, the judiciary, healthcare, education, and the massive government funding ecosystem supporting it all.
For the aspirants listening, remember this key takeaway. Technology is never strictly neutral. It is inherently political. Sovereign AI is about political and economic agency.
Right when you write your mains answers, don't just list the features of the new app.
Discuss the strategic implication of India finally owning its own digital brain.
And keep a close eye on how this actually plays out over the next few months. Will the slow-moving bureaucracy actually adopt this tech? Will the human-in-the-loop systems effectively prevent AI errors in court cases?
Those are the big questions we need to track. But for today, February 19, 2026, it is a day to mark in your calendar. The sleeping giant of Indian AI has officially woken up.
Absolutely. It is a game changer. Thank you for that incredibly detailed breakdown. It has given all of us a lot to think about and research further.
My pleasure. Keep studying and keep questioning the narrative.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Swadharma IAS Academy.